We're going to start by looking at two number lines. Remember, the first thing you want to do when looking at a number line is to look and see how many sections it's broken down into, or how many parts. So you look here and you can see that this number line has been broken down into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you can count those spaces in between, or if you count the lines, just remember to go to that next line after the whole number. So I would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 sections. Now, with that being said, I can see that the whole number 3 is at the beginning of this line, and the whole number 4 is at the end. So whenever I write my mixed numbers, I know it's going to be between 3 and 4. So I come back to letter A here, and I see that this would be 3 and 2/8. Some of you are already probably thinking that's the same as 3 and 1/4. You're right, 3 and 2/8. I continue on, that's 3 and 3/8, 3 and 4/8, so this would be 3 and 5/8. 3 and 5/8. Now, taking a look down at the second number line, this time this number line is actually broken down into whole numbers again, and it's broken down into smaller sections. You can see here we've got the whole number 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. The whole numbers 5 through 9. Now, with that being said, you need to go between the whole numbers, so let's just go between 5 and 6 and count how many different parts they're broken into. So we have 1, 2, 3. So they're broken down into 3 different parts. So as I'm looking at letter C, I can see this is 5 and 1/3, 5 and 2/3. So for letter C, we have 5 and 2/3. Then going on to D, you can see it's past the 7, but it's not to 8, so it's going to be between 7 and 8. So there's 7 and 1/3. 7 and 1/3. Now, looking at the next screen, you're going to notice here that I have a fraction, 3/6 written. Remember, equivalent fractions are fractions that are equal. So when I talk of equivalent fractions, or you hear of equivalent fractions, you know that they need to be 2 fractions or more that are equal to each other. So when I look at 3/6, I think to myself, okay, what fraction would be equivalent to 3/6? Now there's a couple of ways that you can do this. The first way you can do it is by looking at the numerator and the denominator and seeing if both of those numbers can be divided by the same number. Well, I know that 3 and 6 can both be divided by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. So 3/6 is the same as 1/2. Now, with that being said, let me go ahead and write down here again 3/6. There is another way, conceptually, that you can do this, and that is if you are looking at the numerator and the denominator, you can multiply both the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So let's just say I picked the number 3 this time. So 3 times 3 is 9. Now, just like when we're doing the least common denominator, when you multiply the numerator, you also have to multiply the denominator in this case. So now we go, okay, well 3 times 3 is 9, so 6 times 3 is 18. So now I know that 9/18 is the same thing as 3/6, which is the same thing as 1/2. Those are equivalent fractions. Now, mixed numbers. If you remember, mixed numbers are called mixed numbers because they have a whole number and a fraction put together. So it's a whole number and a fraction put together. Now, if you remember, there were a couple of different ways that we talked about how we can find improper fractions, changing mixed numbers to improper fractions. The first way you can do it is you can think, okay, if I take this 7 in the denominator and I multiply it by this whole number 3, you would end up with 21. 7 times 3 is 21. Then you add to that the 2 for the numerator, and you'd end up with 23. You keep the denominator as 7, you'd end up with 23 sevenths. The other way we said you could do that is really what we were just doing is the same thing as saying, well, I know that 21 sevenths is the same as 3. 21 sevenths is the exact same thing as 3. That's like 21 divided by 7. So if I have 21 sevenths and I add to that 2 sevenths, I would end up with 23 sevenths. 21 sevenths plus 2 sevenths is 23 sevenths. Then, last screen. On this screen, you can see I have an improper fraction. And this improper fraction, it simply means that the numerator is greater than the denominator. So 26 fourths. So in changing it to a mixed number, you can think, okay, this is like saying 26 divided by 4. So if I were to divide 26 items into 4 groups, how many times could this 4 go into 26? A lot of you are probably already thinking, well, 6 times, because you know that 6 times 4 is 24. So if I took that 6 times 4 is 24, I would have 2 left over, because 26 minus 24 is 2. You keep the denominator, so it's 6 and 2 fourths, which is the same thing as 6 and 1/2. So 26 fourths changed to a mixed number is 6 and 2 fourths. Now you're going to click on the link below and have a chance, and you're going to have a chance now to practice some problems just like the ones that you saw now.